One thing about Mario Kart World that's been discussed to no end are its intermission tracks. In case you're unaware, the intermission tracks are highways that serve as a bridge between two normal tracks. They're usually simpler than the main courses and often shorten the number of laps that you do on the track that you're driving to. The goal of these courses was likely to make the game feel more interconnected and not like each track takes place in an entirely different universe than the last one. Like in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Mushroom Cup, one moment you'd be racing through a water park and then the next you'd be isekai'd into a Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movie. In Mario Kart World's Mushroom Cup, when you go from Crown City to Whistletop Summit, you can see the environment slowly change around you and realize that the two places not only exist in the same world, but are actually pretty close to one another too. Of course, while this was a unique idea, it came with some mixed reactions. I've already said my piece about intermissions in these two videos, which you can listen to once you're done with this one, but for this video, I want to get outside of my head and into the heads of the people at Nintendo. I want to figure out just why they are so obsessed with forcing intermission tracks onto players in Grand Prix and worldwide races, instead of giving them a choice like they do in versus races and private lobbies. Now, one idea that comes to mind is that Nintendo doesn't really care. As of right now, Mario Kart World has sold over 5 million copies. They've already gotten $50 from everyone who paid for the bundle, and $80 from the poor fans of physical media who didn't want to immediately deplete 10% of their Switch 2 storage at launch. Dougie B already has your money, so he can take his sweet time adding things to the game or just leaving it as is. This applies to all post-launch updates, really. They might implement DLC tracks by erecting other islands and connecting them to the main hub world, but they don't have to. They might finally add some new characters and outfits for existing ones in the game, but they don't have to. They might allow me to shoot Nabbit with a pistol after he's juked me for the 3rd time, but they don't have to. The problem with this idea, though, is that if you do something like this, then you'll have both negative press stunting your game at the very start and less incentives to buy the game as time goes on. Imagine how many more units Mario Kart World could have sold if it didn't create all this bad press surrounding it, including the forced intermission. Yeah, you get some short-term profits, but at the cost of long-term sustainability. What company would do that? Okay, well, now that I put it that way, that's something that a lot of companies like to do. But that's the reason why recently games have been updated as time goes on, to attract new players and bring back old ones later into the game's life. Heck, some developers are so dedicated to the motto of updating their games later on that the base product isn't even finished. Also, and this is probably the 7-year-old in me that loves shiny things talking, but the rest of the world is too gorgeously designed to say they don't care. There's so much genuine care put into the NPCs and the look of the different biomes. And maybe that's why they want you to play the intermission so much, because they put so much effort into crafting this seamless world, so they really want you to play it. Imagine spending years coming up with ways to connect tracks like the Celestial Star View Peak and the Spooky Boo Cinema. The tracks themselves are pretty easy for the developers to make at this point, some of them are even ported from older Mario Kart games. But finding ways to link them all together without it being super jarring or confusing must have been something that they were very proud of, so they really want the player to experience that as well. There's a bunch of Toads and Bowser's minions scattered throughout the roads. There's the occasional helicopter, semi-truck that you can take control of. There's even a huge tornado between Choco Mountain and Whistletop Summit that you can use to take a gigantic shortcut. Some of the intermissions are also incredibly cinematic, like the intermission from Dino Dino Jungle to Great Question Block Ruins, or from Peach Stadium to Rainbow Road. Some of these intermissions also allow us to do some of the main tracks backwards or access parts of them that we can't even get near on their normal 3-lap versions. This was a way they could firmly differentiate Mario Kart World from previous entries. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already has 96 tracks, and if people mainly had 3-lap tracks in Mario Kart World, then to them it probably wouldn't make the game stand out as much from 8 Deluxe. So intermissions were made to try and put a fresh, easy-to-spot gimmick on the Mario Kart formula. I mean, of all the press surrounding this game, no one's calling it Mario Kart 8.5. Yeah, this is a straight line, but it can be the most anarchy-ridden, chaos-filled bloodbath of a straight line you've ever seen. But no matter how proud you may be of a feature or a game mechanic, it's important to eventually let the player decide how they want to play. We all experienced the intermissions. We played each of the Grand Prix Cups and Knockout Tour rallies and saw all of the ways that the tracks interconnect. Heck, some of us were probably crazy enough to try every single intermission track forward and backward in versus races. We all got to see what they were so proud of, so why are they still forcing it down our throats like this in Grand Prix and online matches? What if they are doing this for a reason that benefits its player base in a way that we're not understanding? Yes, there's millions of us that are chronically online and talk about and train in Mario Kart until our thumbs fall off, but I'm willing to bet that's not how the average Mario Kart player is. The average player probably messes around on a couple of the tracks for an hour, and then has this thing called a life that they have to attend to, so the point of the intermissions might also be to veer on the simpler side so players like that can still compete. You see, in a lot of the normal tracks, the wall riding and rail grinding allow you to do some crazy tricks and skip parts of the stage. You can only pull off a lot of these tricks though if you practice them over and over again, something that the average player is probably not going to do. On the other hand, a lot of the intermissions have very little tech that you can implement in them, besides grinding on the occasional power line or fence and holding down the A button. So while Petite Kitten over here is doing all of these cuts on the third lap once everyone arrives at Bowser's Castle, little Timmy might still be able to hold the lead he obtained on the 2-lap intermission to Bowser's Castle. One thing I've heard a lot of people say is that they want 2 separate queues for online races, where one is just 3-lap courses and the other is all intermissions. The problem is, if you split the player base of racers in half like that, the part that wants to play intermissions might not always get full lobbies. Nintendo needs a mix of the normies and the deodorant-deprived degenerates in order to keep the servers populated 24/7. In my opinion, it would have been better to keep it to one queue, then when the 3 tracks are shown, give the players in said queue the choice of a 3-lap version or an intermission version of those tracks. But Nintendo may not even need to do that. They know the hardcore players are resilient. They'll always want to play some Mario Kart, even if they have to build Discord servers just to occasionally get a break from all the intermissions. But now that begs the question of why Nintendo is so determined to level the playing field between casual and competitive players in a game known for frequently screwing over players regardless of skill level anyway. Is it because they really want newer and especially younger players to experience the joys of winning every now and again? Or is there an even deeper reason? You know, maybe Nintendo just craves control. They want to do anything that they can to exert as much control over our lives as possible. They want to control every last bit of dopamine in your brain by deciding what tracks you play on, depriving you of it match after match, only to give it to you once they feel you've gambled enough of your time away. Then once they've got us under their control, they want to blend us together and make us completely indistinguishable from one another. Have you been playing Mario Kart for 20 years and know all of the tracks in the series like the back of your hand? Well, too bad. You're doing no better than the 7-year-old that just got the console last week. They don't want you to break away from the pack one bit. They want all of you right behind each other in a single file line like a bunch of 3rd graders. In intermissions, there's hardly any way to build up a super noticeable lead like in the 3-lap tracks, and it's more than possible to have that slight lead you do have absolutely eradicated by shells. In fact, Nintendo's not just looking to control your games, they're seeking to control your very lives. Why do you think Nintendo's making a bunch of phone apps and even alarm clocks? It's so they can get their hands on every aspect of your life. Next there's gonna be Nintendo cars bing bing wahooing down the street. Just you wait! Those are some reasons why I believe Nintendo's forcing us to do intermissions. Time will tell if they end up going back on their decision, but after all these updates, my optimism is dwindling. Why do you think Nintendo likes intermissions so much? Do you think Nintendo just thinks very highly of them, or do you also believe that they're control freaks? Let me know in the comments, and remember to leave a like and subscribe to Upstar716 for more content on Mario Kart World and other things gaming. What else are you hiding?